Is for any of you is risk taking a part of your personality? And is that like something made you push forward and do things that maybe somebody else next to you would not do? And then how much is, well, that's another part there.
Let's just pass it. That's a fascinating question. I learned early on that risk-taking was not risk-taking, it was normal behavior.
How early on did you?
5.
Okay.
So I grew up with that sense that you're only going to grow in risk-taking, but that doing something new, which is taking risks, is part of human nature and part of what you do every day. So I'm remembering as early as when I was 5 and my 5-year-old male cousin used to beat me up, and my mother said, well, go hit him back. Not necessarily the right answer, but I did, and he never hit me again. So we've had this constant career competitiveness forever, ever since that point. But risk-taking is very important with our candidates. We see many of them either too scared to take a risk to try something new, or too overly inflated with their own ego that they're not seeing what it means. So we see a lot of both ends of that continuum. And we try to work with them on both ends through questions for them to reflect on and ways to approach things.
I don't really think of them as risks. Something will present it to me that this has to get done. And I assume, well, of course, this will work out. Amazingly, it usually does. I mean, not that I haven't had a couple of failures down there. But it just seems like this is just the work that needs to get done, and somebody could just figure out a way to do it. And the times when things haven't worked out exactly as I thought, something else came along. So I guess I'm really not focused on the downside of the risk.
And you lost optimism.
I guess. Or stupidity. It's a big advantage.
I think in terms of risk tolerance quite often when I'm talking with people, because there is a different level of comfort that we have with risk. My risk tolerance is very high. If I lose everything, I lost it. You just start over again. Other people don't have that. If you have a low tolerance for risk and you go into something that's entrepreneurial, you may not be very happy. Okay? If you have a high tolerance for risk and you take a job working for a hospital or a clinic, you may not be happy. Do you understand what I mean? And that understanding our tolerance of risk, that I say it's neither good nor bad, but that it's one of the things that makes us different, and that you need a certain level to go out on your own in practice. It's a whole lot easier to go to work 5 days a week and know that at the end of that week you know what your paycheck will be, and it'll be the same thing every week, and if you don't have a lot of work, you still get the same thing, than it is to go out and say, if I see someone, I'll make some money. And so that risk tolerance is pretty important. When I talk to people about coming to work with me, I always look. I don't ask them, but I'm looking at their risk tolerance because I want a certain level, but not too much. Dr. Peterson used to always say, make sure when you hire somebody, you're hiring a worker, not a competitor. And so I don't want them to have too high a risk. I don't want them to want to go off and spin off on their own, but I don't want them to be afraid. Now my risk tolerance, and actually I don't do a non-compete when people work for me. A lot of companies do that, but I don't do it because first off, it doesn't hold up in court usually. But secondly, I always say to them, if you want to go out on your own, you go with my blessing. If you're willing to work as hard as I am, then you take the business from me. But I don't think you can do it, you see, because I have a very, very high tolerance of risk. That if I lose it all, I lose it all. And when you start out, people are talking about those paydays. Those become very important. In the first months, or maybe even the first year when we started the practice, I could tell you what came in the mail every single day as far as a check. And I kept adding that up in my head. And that the point when we made payroll, I sat back and relaxed. Because every week, I didn't know if we were going to have payroll or not. You know, there's nothing guaranteeing it. And so it takes a level of risk tolerance in order to do something like that. And that if you understand your own risk tolerance, you know whether to get a job at the hospital or whether to go out and start your own practice.
We see this in our business the most with faculty who are tenured, moving to administration, and they may have to give up tenure and rank. And that is a huge deal because they've earned it. They don't want to give it up. But not every place will give it to them if they've already had it.
I guess there's areas that I just don't compromise on risk. When it comes to client care, I don't take risks there. I don't allow anyone to take risks there.
No.
There's certain areas of business that I don't take risks. When I started my first payroll, I had a payroll company take everyone's withholding tax and keep it over there. So when it came time to do my quarterly returns, I would make sure that I had that. But all the rest is pretty much up for grabs.